Trans activist Blossom perfectly shows how dishonest trans activists truly are. Today I'm going to react to Blossom debating conservative commentator Michael Knowles on Jubilee, because I have a lot to say.
Transgenderism should be eradicated from public life entirely.
I want to know your ideology around transgenderism, something that doesn't exist. It just sounds more like conservative propaganda. So I kind of want to know a little bit more about what you're trying to communicate.
It leads to the depriving women of their legitimate rights. In some cases, it leads to rapes, notably in the last few years. And it also leads to women losing their sports competitions and their scholarships, and it's just disordered and false. And it also leads to more people adopting this identity, which leads to very high rates of anxiety, depression, and
when we talk about these rape cases of women in the restroom, they're coming from cis men like you.
That's true, Blossom. You're 100% right. The men who essay women in women's restrooms, the men who compete against women in women's sports, and so on, are not real trans women. They are men who self-identify as trans women to get easier access to women. The problem is, the trans community, a community you represent, has decided that self-identification is totally valid. Your community preaches all the time that you don't need gender dysphoria to be trans, meaning if a man claims to be a woman, he's a real trans woman. He doesn't need to transition. He can have a full-size beard. It doesn't matter. So when that is the narrative, you can't just suddenly claim that the men who essay women and hurt women in women's spaces aren't actual trans women, because that's hypocritical as fuck. And that, according to you, is transphobic, to gatekeep who's a real trans and who's not. A real trans woman is a biological male with chronic and severe gender dysphoria who transitioned in order to pass as the opposite sex in society. And real trans women don't want to hurt women in their spaces or force themselves into their spaces. They just want to live a normal life.
So let's be very clear.
No, that's not true. In 2021,
excuse me, do not interrupt a black
well, I'm just trying to correct you. Well, I would never.
First of all, Blossom, he can interrupt you. It doesn't matter what your skin color is, what you claim to be. You talk a lot, and you have a very aggressive energy. So, as you know, you have to get interrupted from time to time. Second of all, not everything is about you. Not that I believe you're not a threat to women, because are you in women's spaces? Are you in women's locker rooms? Because you seem like the type of person who believes that you have the right to be in women's locker rooms where women, are naked. I think you're the type of person, the type of activist who believes that you are a real woman, even though you're a man. Please retire the argument. It's not happening. Yes, it is cis, as in cisgender, because you're not trans. You're just a hateful activist with a really harmful agenda. You know that what Michael is talking about is happening. You not being able to condemn things horrible people are doing when they claim to be from your community is such a red flag. It's incredibly dishonest. It shouldn't be that hard to condemn.
The thing about me, as a black trans woman, I am not a threat to cis women, and I think it is harmful that you are going around here spewing that rhetoric, weaponizing this rhetoric against trans people.
Weaponizing facts?
Transgenderism does not exist. We as trans people exist. We are 1% of the population, and there is a lot of power in the trans identity because you are sitting here spewing something to me that doesn't really exist.
I'm not spewing anything. I'm just stating facts plainly.
I have lived experience. You don't, and you never will. But I do have a question for you.
I have lived experience.
What if one of your
I'm alive.
I have lived experience, I'm alive. Love that. Stating facts and talking about things that are happening in real life is not propaganda. You believe that anyone who claims to be trans are trans, and the people who are doing horrible things in society claim to be trans. So, the reason why I said that Blossom is the perfect example of how dishonest trans activists are, it's because instead of listening to the other person in a debate, and instead of condemning this horrible behavior, they attack the other person. When attacking people who are against harming women and children, you're showing your true colors. And I don't care if you're brainwashed by trans ideology, you actually mean well, you have a good heart. I don't care. if you're personally attacking people, doing whatever you can to not listen to people who are against harming women and children, you're a monster.
What if one of your kids came out as trans? How would you
God
react to
forbid.
that?
I mean, I would obviously love my children, and I would
Okay.
try to do what's best for my children. And the best thing that I could do to be respectful and also to be conducive to their flourishing is to tell them the truth, which is that they're not really girls.
Oh, come on. I can't even imagine your relationship with your children. No shade.
Wow, rude. What is that reaction? Oh my God, you don't want to lie to your children? Confuse them even more? You don't want to medicalize them for life? Ah, bigot. Like, what is wrong with you?
Hey, that was a great
I
relationship
just
with my
cannot even
children.
imagine that. People like you do not have the intellectual capacity to hold conversations like this because in a minute you're going to reduce this down to genitalia and then we're going to have to shift it somewhere else because obviously
Right, everything is upside down nowadays. Stating that the grass is green, the sky is blue, means that you're spewing a hateful ideology. But stating that a trans woman is a real woman, just trapped in a man's body, is an obvious fact. Super upside down. Everything Blossom here is accusing Michael of is something she's guilty of herself. Blossom here is the one spewing ideological propaganda.
all
In a
right.
minute, what I'm going to do is correct something you said. When you said that
Go ahead.
the rapes that have occurred in these bathrooms are cis men.
White cis men, I should say,
Yeah,
actually.
that isn't true. Loudoun County, 2021, the big case that actually ended up flipping the state was because there was a boy who wore a skirt, went into the girl's bathroom and raped a girl in a particularly hideous way. And you know what happened? Hold on, don't cut me off. You said you wouldn't.
A cis boy.
He was
but it was
wearing-
not a trans woman.
Oh,
it was not a trans woman.
I thought you said you weren't gonna cut me
It
off.
was not a trans woman.
I thought
And
you-
that's the goo goo
If-
gaga.
if-
That's the goo goo gaga. It was not a trans woman.
No, the Google Gaga is that you can't condemn it. Again, because you believe and you spew the narrative that anyone who claims to be trans are it. Here we have a case of a boy claiming to be a trans girl, essaying a little girl. You don't want to talk about it because you don't care. You don't care. I don't know how else to explain it. It's also not just about what you say, it's also about how you're acting, your energy, your facial expressions. I can tell by looking at you, even if I turned off the sound, you don't care.
All y'all do
I don't
is
think-
go back to cis boys. You're always talking
He-
about cis boys.
he was
I
wearing-
don't understand
he was
the
wearing-
fascination
he-
with trans bodies and what's happening in the bathroom. It is mostly happening
I think
from
you're
white, cis
filibustering because you
men.
don't want me to tell you what happened in the
filibuster
bathroom.
who?
Me. I think you're
Oh,
filibustering
child,
me.
no.
I think that you're
No.
distracting from the fact that a boy wearing a skirt in a girl's
A
bathroom
boy,
raped a girl.
but not a trans woman.
Well, there's no such thing as a trans woman.
Oh, yes,
so
it is.
that's
You're looking at one right now.
I'm looking
You're
at-
looking at me
I'm
right
looking
now.
at a-
with lived experience.
I'm looking
with
at a-
lived experience.
I'm-
You are looking at a trans woman who has been transitioning for over 20 years, who
Yeah.
has lived experience.
You have transitioned for 20 years and you still look like this? Yikes. So Michael is right. If we're talking about gender, sex, same thing, there's no such thing as trans. Trans woman, trans man. We only have man, woman, boy, girl, male, female. And if I were there, I would not bring this up as an argument. I would rather talk about self-ID and how hypocritical trans activists are when it comes to this stuff. But he's right. There's no such thing as trans. I'm a woman with gender dysphoria.
You're
But-
talking to
but
an
your
activist here.
but your
You're
identity
talking to a
is not
debater here.
grounded
You're
in
talking to somebody
reality.
that's extremely. Oh, I am
I'm not ta-
reality.
I'm not really talking
In
to
your
anyone, 'cause you
head,
keep
I'm not,
talking
and-
over
and
me.
I'm not, but I am in reality.
Yeah.
I'm here in front of you right now to you.
You're confused
Because
about your identity.
No, you are confused
I'm not
at the fact
confused.
that you don't really have any talking points right now because I'm.
Then why aren't you letting me
You
speak?
really don't.
If I have nothing to say,
Take me
why
on
aren't
your
you letting
show.
me
Put me
speak?
on your show.
I-
How about that?
Then it would become your
How about
show, I
that?
think.
Oh, yeah, I should have a show. I
Yeah.
should have.
Having lived experience is not an argument. It doesn't mean anything. When we talk about gender, when we talk about sex, it's not an argument. If you took a DNA test right now, it will conclude that you're a man. And there's no category called lived experience in your DNA. And that is the conversation. That's what it's about.
If you're going to describe a boy who wears a skirt and goes into a girl's bathroom
No, you
as
are.
a cis man, no, I didn't.
No, you are. This is the example that you run to.
Here's the thing. People who have really bad intentions, like narcissists, like psychopaths, they want to argue all day long with you. They would try to drive you insane, focusing on small details that actually don't matter. So you don't talk about the actual thing, the actual topic. And unfortunately, a lot of people in this situation just play along when they shouldn't. I think it's important to recognize, to identify the type of person you're sitting in front of, in a debate especially. Because Blossom is one of the worst and the most disgusting ones. This clip is not even that bad, but if you type in his name on YouTube, you'll find out how horrible he is. But you will also find trans activists who are a little bit more grounded, or a little bit more human, and then you might need a different approach when debating them. If I'm ever in a debate with trans activists like Blossom, I would say this. If they say, it's not happening. If it was happening, would you be against it? What if it did happen? What would you say to that? Another thing I would do is to ask a lot of questions, because usually that's what trans activists do. And that's smart, because then the other person has to defend themselves and answer all these questions and say, well, I'm not a racist. Oh, I'm not a transphobe. Well, this is my opinion. This is not my opinion. And then they look guilty as fuck. But it's also a good idea to be the one who asks a lot of questions, because we're not the ones who need to defend anything. We don't need to. We have facts, science, biology, and common sense on our side. The activists are the ones who have to justify their beliefs, their opinions. You don't need to justify that you believe in only 2 genders. The person who believes in more needs to justify it. The last advice I want to give to the people who need it is just ignore the personal attacks. They don't mean anything. Don't let them get to you. You know, the attacks, but also the people. They have no power over you. That's all I have for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. What do you think about Michael Knowles? What do you think about Blossom? If you want to see more content like this, remember to hit subscribe and the notification bell. I love you all, and I cannot wait to see you in the comments down below. Say peace out.